Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
The Cincinnati Bengals play this Saturday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not only do they need a win in the AFC North, they need a win to keep their season alive. Currently sit in a playoff spot, but they don't control their own destiny just yet. At the end of the day, you just have to win your games. You have to worry about yourself, take care of what you can, control what you can, as the Steelers and Bengals are having some issues right now. Who comes out on top? Who keeps their season afloat and alive? This is Bengals on the Brain. I'm Joe Goodberry. The show is brought to you by First Star Logistics. They're giving away a kegerator, a custom kegerator on Twitter. First Star Logistics at Joe Goodberry, Malik Wright, Dave Lapham. You'll see it on one of our accounts. Best place is to head to First Star Logistics. Make sure you follow them. And that's part of the rules anyway. So you're gonna have to do that when you get there. Custom kegerator. Pretty awesome. We got a lot of Bengals news setting up this Saturday's game. I almost said Sunday. Had to catch myself there. On NBC. Yeah, it's on NBC. And because I was thinking the Bills and Chargers game is on Peacock on the app. Yeah, if you want to watch the next game, you're gonna have to download the app. So if you're in Cincinnati, I think the game's on NBC nationwide. Should have looked this up prehand. It is on NBC. I'm saying this very confidently, as you can tell from my face. Anyways, this is our weekend update. We're going to get you prepared for that Saturday game. Look at all the news and notes, everything that's going on in Bengals football throughout the week, and catch you up on some of the fun stuff too. It's not all bad stuff, because we are going to start with the bad news, as DJ Reader and DJ Ivy were officially placed on the injured reserve list, ending their seasons, potentially ending DJ Reader's time with the Cincinnati Bengals, as he'll be a free agent this March. We'll see how that plays out. That'll be a conversation for another day. But what do the Bengals do at those two positions? They didn't directly call someone up from the practice squad. They did not sign somebody off the streets. They did, however, make two waiver claims and was awarded one at defensive tackle. The first one up was T.R. Tart of the Tennessee Titans, claimed by the Houston Texans, who had the same record as the Bengals, but the Bengals currently slot over them based on playoff scenarios, which is not head-to-head, because you would think that. Head-to-head is a lie, guys. It matters, but it's not going to matter this season as much for where the Bengals stand. So the Texans got first pick. The Browns also put in a claim with the Bengals for T.R. Tart. T.R. Tart's a good nose tackle to defend the run, can take on double teams. He'll go to the Texans, who were slotted ahead of the Bengals. The next day, the Atlanta Falcons waived Travis Bell, former 7th-round pick of the Chicago Bears. The Bengals put in a claim for him and were awarded. He'll be on the active roster for the remainder of the year. And I don't mean the active game day. He has to be on the 53 to play out the rest of the year now. Travis Bell, who is a 7th-round pick, as I said, played 84 snaps with the Bears in preseason, had a sack, 2 pressures, 6 defensive stops. He played 40 snaps for the Falcons after being cut by the Bears. Cut down day. He's a good athlete. He's kind of squatty and short. We'll see where that goes. I think they just wanted to bring him in the room and see if he can help this team in the future. I expect Jay Tufele to be the one that's active on game day, and maybe even Dominique Davis from the practice squad could get a call up here or there. And if they want a bigger, heavier body that can also play nose, we'll see how that goes for them. I could see some people having issues with this, was saying this is our solution, this is our fix for losing DJ Reader. Losing DJ Reader is a huge loss for them. In my opinion, the two players that shifted their defense the most were Jesse Bates and DJ Reader over the last 3 years, since the defense in this team got good. I do believe Trey Hendrickson is an elite player, an elite pass rusher for sure. But I think when you have a guy that can change the numbers game for you up front, like DJ Reader can, and the way Bates was able to cover on the back end and do so much, losing both those guys now at this point, that's tough. And I know they've had all year without Jesse Bates. We don't have to bring him up. I just, in my mind, that's how I slot DJ Reader. I think he is one of the best nose tackles in the entire league and offers so much that makes his defense tick and makes his defense work. So we'll see what Travis Bell can do. We'll see what Jay Tufele can do in that spot. Maybe they'll play more of their 3-4 defense or 5-2 defense and try and get more defensive linemen out on the field. Does that take a corner off the field? We'll see how they handle that and go with it. The other bad news is that Jamar Chase will miss this week's game with a separated shoulder. I think it was Ian Rappaport that said it was more of the not a mild sprain, but a moderate sprain, which takes him out this week. We'll see about next week and the week after. We'll see if they stay in contention. If they can win without him, which T. Higgins stepping up in that number one spot, maybe we'll see more Andre Yosevich, maybe we'll see more Trenton Irwin and more Charlie Jones get rotated in. Can they pick up the slack and replace what they're losing with Jamar Chase? I think they can. T has played very, very well whenever he's had to go out there without Chase. It is kind of a shame if you look at the history. We haven't had Higgins and Chase versus the Pittsburgh Steelers at all. I think it's one game so far throughout their 3 years being together. So we're not going to get it again. Real shame we don't have Joe Burrow as well. But, just talking two receivers here. Seems like whenever we go against Steelers, we are shorthanded. But the Bengals have done well against them. I expect this to be a much different game than the last time they played, where it was 16-10. Very ugly game on both sides. The Bengals have found something that works on offense. And in fact, their offensive coordinator was ranked pretty highly from this analytics study, I guess you call it. They put together, and they described it better on Twitter and showed what went into it. But you have the elite guys at the top, and then the section of good offensive play calling and coaching and coordinating. And Zach Taylor and crew fit into that mold. Zach recently this week said he could see everyone on this offensive staff being a head coach one day, and that includes Brian Callen as the offensive coordinator, Dan Pitcher as the quarterbacks coach, who also works on their third down packages, and Troy Walters at wide receiver, who also works on their red zone packages as well. So some future there, future head coaches on this staff, or at least future coordinators, I think for sure for Dan Pitcher and maybe even Troy Walters down the line. Injury report this for this week, though, with those guys on IR, DJ Reader, DJ Ivy. I expect Sidney Jones to be the guy that's called up from practice squad. I didn't get to that. Jamar Chase is out. That's it. The Bengals are pretty clean. Other than that, if you're wondering, Cam Taylor-Britt is still on his way back. He is at least on the rehab field. He at least has his helmet in practice. That is a good sign. Maybe we'll see him next week versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Meanwhile, the Steelers are dealing with a host of injuries and suspensions at safety. They'll be down 3 safeties this week. We'll see how that affects their ability to play the pass, if they're going to, because last time they brought that safety up to play the run really well. They disguised their coverages really well using those safeties, and they kept a lid on this receiving unit. Without Jamar Chase now, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they can be as creative as they want to be back there with backup safeties. They're getting Cam Hayward back, it appears, being cleared from concussion. And they will start Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, both guys down now. It'll be Mason Rudolph. We'll see how that goes. He did not look very good last week when he was eventually put into that game against the Indianapolis Colts. Depth chart. This gets sent out every week by Mike Petraglia, and the Bengals put this out. But, he always tweets it out, Mike does. And there's never a change on it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I like that Mike puts this out. I like to look at it to see if there's a change. And there was a change this week, and it's Chase Brown elevated to the number 2 running back spot, which is what has been happening. So it's way behind. If you're ever looking at the online depth chart, it doesn't really do much for you to give you an idea of what this team's actually doing. But when you see it finally change, it is nice to see, and just shows that what we've been seeing on Sunday is here to stay. Not that anybody questioned it. Chase Brown will continue to do what he has to do. Next in news, Walter Payton Man of the Year contest. The Bengals nominated Ted Karras, as we know. I talked about Ted Karras a little bit last week, playing really, really well. Ted Karras is now number 1 in this contest. You can use the hashtag, put out tweets. Everyone's doing it. I can't even scroll Twitter right now without seeing Walter Payton Man of the Year contest hashtags with Ted Karras' name in there. And I think he's down to do some tattoo giveaway if he ends up winning this. So Yeah, it might be worth getting in on. If you want a Cincy hat tattoo, I don't know. I guess you're gonna bug Ted Karras about that. He might be putting something together, and that'll be pretty fun. The offensive line play as a whole, really, really well over the last few weeks. A lot of it is the scheme change. I think the more play action, less true pass sets, more screens, more running the ball, more of a let's not ask you to pass protect as many times as you were before. And then we talked about this. Not every pass protection is the same. 3-step drop, quick passes, screens, those are simple for an offensive lineman. But the 5, the 7-step drops, if you're not using play action off it, you're really giving them a tough time and making it harder on your offensive lineman to pass protect. The Bengals aren't doing that lately, and they are responding. I think as a unit, as a whole, they're responding very, very well and playing very well. And I should mention it's because a lot of it is because of health. They've been healthy this year. They're one of the healthiest offensive lines. Knock on wood. Seriously, knock on wood right now if you're listening to this. I don't want to jinx them. They were this at this point last year as well. It was week 15 when they lost Leal Collins, and then it was week 18 where they lost Alex Kappa, and then the wild card game where they lost Jonah Williams. So at this point last year, they were healthy as well. And this data is why you want to track offensive line health and how many snaps they play together. It is indicative of how far teams go, or predictive of how far teams go in the playoffs a lot of times. And you wish you had Joe Burrow. This could have been, I said this recently, that I think this could have been Joe Burrow's MVP season because the O-line's healthy, because the coaching on the offensive side, the play calling and play design took an evolution, took a step. All the receivers being together for the final year, getting Chase Brown, an explosive running back, finding Tanner Hudson. And then because the defense has given up so many explosive plays this year, you would have had to have passed and had to have kept pushing the ball downfield. And I think this would have potentially been Burrow's MVP season, especially when you look at the landscape. And he would have, I think, in my mind, gotten votes over Purdy, votes over Josh Allen, votes over Dak Prescott. And then if you want to throw in Myles Garrett and Tyreek Hill, I think that is the list. Jalen Hurts, I guess, is still in there as well. We'll see how those guys finish the year. We got 3 weeks to go. But I do think, not to harp on it, but I do think this would have been a great shot for Joe Burrow to get back on it. Staying with the offensive line, though, Cordell Volson, specifically, I wanted to shout out because he is playing very, very well the last few weeks. As a run blocker, always doing his thing, always a massive guy. He's not the best moving in space. He's not the best getting to second level, but he's had some flashes there as well. But it's the pass protection where we've always had an issue. He has really responded to this change in scheme, and he's really doing well the last few weeks. And shout out to Volson. If he continues to play like this and finish the year like this, I think we're going to look at it and say, hey, we don't have to worry about left guard for 2024. Let him come in and see if he can take another small step towards being a suitable starting left guard in the NFL. Because as of right now, I'd say average starting left guard will take that. You know, when you're paying everyone else high salaries, you will definitely, you could do worse at left guard than Cordell Volson lately. And I thought this was a good piece of reporting from Ben Baby. Interesting from the locker room, getting that perspective when you have that access. He let us know that, hey, they had a $1,000 limit for the offensive line for their Christmas gift contest, or not as a contest. What is a giveaway? Their exchange. That's the word. And Orlando Brown ended up with a bow set. That's awesome. That's $1,000 bow set, and probably that thing is probably sweet. Hopefully, we get some more information on what that looks like, and maybe Orlando Brown will share some of that. I mentioned the defense and how many explosive plays they're giving up in a EPA study, expected points study. The Bengals rank 32nd this year. 32nd. That's worse. That's the worst in the NFL if there's 32 teams. So if you're wondering how bad that is, that's the bad side, not the great side. They're not doing very good on defense at all. And you look at it in almost every factor. They aren't giving up that many points per game, but that's because they keep, like the Mike Hilton interception against the Vikings, they keep finding a way to make plays in the red zone. Speaking of Mike Hilton, playing fantastic on tape. And I didn't end up getting to cut the clips up. I watched the defensive film, and I was going to do it today. And then it was Friday, and some of you guys don't watch the film of the previous game on a Friday show because it's so far after. So I said, you know what? I'll save it. I'll save that stuff for Twitter, and we'll do news and updates for this week. But Mike Hilton, man, what a game against the Vikings. What a game. I mean, honestly, I want to cut it up just for like a career highlight and put it out there because, man, he's been awesome lately. So good. And the numbers are really backing that up as Mike Hilton's putting on a show lately. News around the league, the Minnesota Vikings are switching their field turf, the slit field turf, leaving the Bengals as the only team remaining, the only team using this style of field turf. And it is the one that the NFLPA and a lot of the research and studies are identifying as the issue, the one type of turf you don't want to play on. And the Bengals are last ones. Again, not a good look for the organization. It seems like sometimes they're just the last one to update or last one to change on things for all of the progress they have made. I'm just being fair here and calling this out. You never want to be the only team that's still using something that everyone else finds obsolete at this point. Having said that, the Hamilton County deal, it looks like this is in there. That's something they will look at for the 2024 season. So we'll see. I don't know if they can do that quickly or if it's a more long-term plan type of thing. At the very least, you got to think if you're the last team with it, this is going to be a change on the horizon, no matter what, because you can't be the only one. You can't be the nail sticking out. The nail that sticks out the furthest gets hammered the hardest, right? So let's not be the team that's still holding on to what it looked like. And if you're young, the Bengals tried grass originally when Paul Brown Stadium opened, Paul Brown to Paycor. The first 4 years, I want to say, it was ugly. They couldn't get it to take for whatever reason. I mean, it would. Every time we got into November, December, it was just sloppy. It was a mess. It was falling apart. You find some old footage of those games. It's nasty. It was nasty. So they announced they're switching to field turf. And I think this current turf was updated and put in 2018. So we're about the range of when you're going to try and, when it gets like 10 years, normally you see these teams completely pulling it out there. We're just shy of that. So we'll see if they try and make it that long and be the last team with it, or if the Hamilton County deal and the updates and the new money that's coming their way will help push them towards a new field. The Bengals cap space for the future, while we're looking in the future now and looking a little bit one eye on 2024, Bengals are in great shape with cap space coming up next year. We're going to talk about DJ Reader and T. Higgins and Jonah Williams as the major guys. They have some smaller guys. Do we want to bring back? Do we want, is Chidobe Awuzie, does he go out there and not find anything? You want to bring him back as a depth rotational player. Akeem Davis-Gaither as the third linebacker, depth rotational player as well. They've got a few others. Do you want to keep these guys? How are they going to keep them? They're in great shape to do so. So we'll see how it goes. This is something we can table for later. I just like when the updates come out, you can see it and say, yeah, all right, this is good. This is a positive. They still can make moves this year. They still can keep a lot of these guys. A lot of doom and gloomers. Doomers? Sure. Like to paint a negative picture for the Bengals cap situation, but they are in great shape going forward. Very healthy cap situation. Corey Dillon's on Twitter now, if you haven't noticed. And I don't think he knows this, but he is now a content creator officially. You can put that into his title next to Super Bowl champion, rushing leader for the Cincinnati Bengals franchise, and multi-time Pro Bowler, yada, yada, yada. He can now put content creator because he had the entire Twitterverse, especially the Bengals side of it, picking out their all-time offenses and defense lineup for the Bengals with just that tweet. And I put mine up. We'll look at it quickly, but I'm going to do a full show on this when we get to the offseason. Show some film, show some data, go through why I think each position is what. I might even change by then if, with more research. That's how I am. So don't hold me to this one. This is how I felt at the time. I've already gotten some good feedback, constructive feedback that I will take into account and see if it affects me later down the line and how I feel about it. But what does your offensive defensive team look like? You can put it in the comments below if you want. If you're not on Twitter, because we are getting some of those comments here on YouTube that, hey, I'm not on Twitter. I can't get in these contests. Twitter's still cool, but if you don't want to, I understand if you don't want to. Leave it in the comments below and let me know what your offense defense team, or if I'm way out of line on something. If you're like, no, Kenny Anderson has to be the quarterback, and maybe Boomer Esiason, maybe you're saying just off talent, you want the arm strength. Give me Boomer Esiason at quarterback. Some people were like, Leon Hall. Hey, I don't know if you know this, but most of the Bengals' talent's on the offensive side. When you look at the history of this team, they've got a few defenders, but really I mean, you can make the case that Trey Hendrickson is their best edge rusher of all time, even though Coy Bacon had 21 and a half sacks at one point for the Bengals, even though he only played here 2 years. We can do the history. We can do that later. We've got a lot of that coming up. We've got Bengals Steelers this week. This has been your weekend update for Bengals on the Brain. I'm Joe Goodberry. The show is brought to you by First Star Logistics. If you get that kegerator, set up the party. Let me know where it's at. Let me know when we're going to tap that thing. And until next time, Hooday.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.